Oh, you can't get enough of that sound, can you, Mark Topping? It has to be a Saturday. It has to be 11 o'clock. It has to be a Badminton Talk podcast. Mark Topping, 2nd of October. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, John. Just getting back into doubles play. I haven't had a game of doubles for 18 months. So
oh my God.
Just the last week or two I've been playing doubles, and oh my goodness, it's going to take quite a bit of work to get that speed back. Oh,
too much singles, Mark, maybe?
Yes. These singles players are too slow, John. Give me doubles.
All right.
You want
the reactive stuff. Yes. And I don't actually, Mark Topping, for someone who I know we're going to be interviewing you, Mark, after the series with Michael O'Mara. I don't see your name down on the list here for the senior nationals. I'm a bit surprised.
Well, a couple of reasons. One, absolutely no chance to do any preparation work. Really, on the court, I'm talking. Obviously, I was doing a lot of physical strength and conditioning and running during the pandemic. But, my junior badminton club, Whitehall Road Junior Badminton Club. Big shout out for Whitehall Road Junior Badminton Club.
Okay, there we go. Let's give them a shout out. You were looking for that, Mark Topping.
Okay, it's my juniors. We meet on a Saturday afternoon from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. and it's our first day back today.
You were saying you meet from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. just in case that clapping took over the airways there. Okay,
yes,
Mark.
You're right.
Very good. That's exciting. So Mark, just to hold you a little bit, because today is the 2nd of October, and we're here on the Badminton Talk podcast, sponsored by the Q Shuttle, and these Q Shuttles are now available in silver and gold on our website. Fantastic shuttles if you now need to get your clubs restocked with them. But Mark, just coming back to, before we go on to talk about Michael O'Mara, any view on the nationals taking place so quick after lockdown in terms of just generally players prepared? I know the entry numbers everyone can see for themselves, but what's your thought on it? Should have happened later, or is it advantageous to everyone? Or I know also that if you haven't had your vaccine, you certainly weren't able to compete in that, and I suppose that could be a bit kind of controversial in a way. Like can't be, you shouldn't be forced to, but rules are rules, and they have to. I suppose safety is there, but leaving that aside, what's your thoughts on the competition as a whole? And again, you can say this will go out on the airways on the 2nd here. Today is the 23rd of October, so
23rd of September.
23rd of September. God, I'm getting my dates right. It's going so quick, the time. But Mark, thoughts on that?
Yeah, John, it is. Look, it's very difficult for the organisers. They obviously wanted to get a nationals, but I'm sure there could have been a case made for putting back the nationals till February and just missing a season of the nationals, because to me it seems a little bit unfair. Nobody has been playing badminton for the last 18 months.
Some have, Mark. Just one sec, Mark, because I know the juveniles up in NIA, you see the high talent performance players and some of the academy players, so they're training.
Yes, I know, but can you really call it a true nationals when only a small select group are training up in the National Indoor Arena? Maybe there's, I don't know, they're very fortunate people, and I don't envy them at all. It's absolutely fantastic. There's a good core group, I suspect, of about maybe 16 to 20 training regularly and have been training regularly, and they're in a very fortunate position. But can you call it a true nationals when nobody else in the country has been allowed to play badminton, and it's only these very elite, a small group of players? And I would have thought that there would have been a strong argument just to say this year we'll leave the nationals just because of the pandemic and the unusual circumstances, and put it back to its usual time in February, and give other players a chance to catch up and have 4 or 5 months preparation for the nationals.
We might throw a post out on our Facebook, Mark, around that time to see what comments come back from our listeners in the Badminton Talk podcast, because that is a fascinating question. The first thought that comes to my mind is at least some players have been playing a bit of singles. I'm not saying they've been playing a lot, but and they didn't play singles obviously at certain times throughout the pandemic. But I think it's tough on doubles. I mean, you just alluded to the fact that you're not as razor sharp as you usually are, and doubles is a very reactive discipline. And there's no doubt there's a big advantage if you have been training, and there's a big disadvantage if you haven't. And, I remember my days in Coke, they used to always talk about the vital few versus the trivial many. The trivial many was like the most important group, because they're the group that support the game, that put the money in, that put the entry fees in, and you have to pay money and entry fees for this. So I think there's going to be two strong opinions on this, Mark. There's going to be those that will say, do you know what, it's fine, it gives them a chance to play and they're delighted to have competition. Others will say it's very unfair, and it would have been perhaps better had they moved it to the early part of 2022, even if they wanted to call it the 21 nationals played in early 22. At least you had a couple of months games time. And then, you see, I'm a bit of a politician here. I'm the Michael O'Meara of influence. Mark at the moment is coming through here.
I'm listening to you.
And then play the 22 nationals towards the end, like it always is around Christmas time, a bit of party time. We all need a party at that time of the year, particularly after all the lockdown. I think there will be a portion of the badminton community that will feel that it's been, they've been, not evenly balanced, if you like, coming in terms of preparation.
Yeah, well, the opportunity to prepare is not even at all. In many ways, it's not even anyway, because most of the players in the high-performance setup are what I describe as full-time professional players. They're training twice a day, 2 hours every day, probably a little bit more, I would just say. And so, yes, it is it's an unbalanced setup already, but I have no problem with that. But now to even make it even more unbalanced and is harsh, I think, on your regular badminton players who play every evening. They work 9 to 5, but yeah, it's been very. I feel they could have left it for 2 or 3 months before playing the nationals.
Yeah, I wonder, Mark, just before we get going with Michael, and he can't wait to get back in. We know he's well able to talk, and thank God, because we need talkers on the Badminton Talk. I wonder, is there an elephant in the room? Is there a reason we're not seeing why they played it? There's always can be. The crew in Badminton Ireland, they're good guys there. They have a lot of stuff to organise week in, week out, and I'm not trying to defend them. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm being the politician here because Michael O'Meara is coming on, so it's politician in my mind all the time, the podcast. But is there something we're missing? Is there a reason they had to play it?
I don't know.
I just wonder, do you have to play a nationals? A Ryder Cup was skipped. The Ryder Cup's on, as we talked, this weekend, and it's 3 years since the last one because of the pandemic. They missed out in a year. That was it. They moved on.
Yeah.
So
it would have been possible to do. Yeah. Absolutely. Look, here we sitting here, we don't have all the facts, do we? We don't know what...
They don't tell us everything, Mark.
I'm
try and use our tentacles a little more to etch in. Maybe on the social media, when we put the post out, we'll get some interesting views on that. That would be great to get.
Yeah. Look, that would be my view. I mean, yeah, it's very unfairly unbalanced against the regular top players, good players, but just haven't had a chance to even have a doubles match, or maybe have had maybe 3 games of doubles before they step on the court against the professional badminton players.
Sure, you wouldn't know what side of the court to stand on, would you, Mark?
Steady, John, steady. I'm sure I will still remember that bit, but it is the match sharpness, obviously, and the ability, just access to courts. It's the access to courts. Yeah.
Well, that's right.
And allowing people to prepare properly for the nationals. So it's not really a true nationals.
No.
And a true nationals would allow everybody to get in and compete and throw their hat down and do preparation work. So it's been targeted just for a small group of 16 people?
Well, Mark, we have to give credit to the guys in the QWAG, though. I mean, they provided that tournament. It's not a tournament, but that activity at least gave a lot of our juniors the opportunity to do some singles practice.
Yeah, we were allowed to do singles at that time. Yeah.
So that was, at least that was a help. But I do accept what you're saying with the doubles. There was no. There was no opportunity. And of course, they're only going back into the halls this week when we're recording this on the 23rd of September. They're only starting to allow the doors of Baldoyle and the doors of Whitehall Road and the doors of all the other courts around the country to go back in with still some careful social distancing. So, yeah, it's... We'll watch this, Mark, with interest and see what the viewpoint is. And maybe in our next podcast, after we've reviewed the comments, we can comment more. What do you think, Mark?
Absolutely, John.
Okay. Whoa, the bell means we better, Mark, get going because Michael's at the door and he wants us to. He wants to go with this. So let's continue on with this interview we did with Michael O'Meara, the legend Michael O'Meara. 102 caps, Mark. 102.
Very few people have done that.
Played for Leinster and Munster. Michael keeps his foot in all camps and played at international level. When he played his very best badminton, when he was absolutely under pressure, Michael was able to deal with pressure. Best players love pressure. If you love pressure and you're a good badminton player, it could be carved out a great future career for you there. So let's just play the button here. Mark, are you ready? Shall we go? The money's in the meter?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go.
That kind of helps you as well. So, I mean, that would have been the strength and conditioning. I suppose more training would have been the word more so than strength and conditioning,
Yeah. Did you actually use any weights, or did you have a program in a gym? Or?
No. Not until the first time I started using weights was we had a Danish coach called Jens Thorgersen, and he came over and he would have put myself and Bruce on some program of leg weights. Now that would have been in my 20s, long after that. But no, weights weren't something anybody knew anything about when I was a teenager.
Yeah, so it was mainly running that created that leg strength.
Well, yeah, and I think maybe some of it was natural. I just think I was born with strong legs,
Yeah. I mean, you think about it today, Michael, in the badminton players that train in the National Indoor Arena, with Sports Ireland right beside them, they have such guidance now on what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. I mean, even fast forward, go back 10 years ago when the McGees were, much younger. The technology and the information and the analytics has changed so much. I mean, I see Mark here, he wears his, is it a Fitbit watch or something like this, and he's telling me how many calories he's burning every hour, every minute, and he has his targets, but it's for what you didn't have when you trained, and you mentioned Mary Bryant. I mean, these were people that they were pioneers of the game. When you think about it, Michael, they were way ahead of their time. You mentioned Aidan Murray and Bryant, so we're putting these players made such a difference to players around them at the time. There was almost like a motherly influence in you, Michael, in some way, because you were, much younger at that time.
Absolutely, yeah. And just one thing I would say as well, having seen everything I've seen over the last maybe 10 years of my coaching career, and even in Slovenia recently, I would say any country out there that is looking to make strides, at be it 15, 17, 19 or senior level, it really is not rocket science of what you need to do. And if you look at and I asked all of our players in Slovenia to have a look at the players who were in the last 8, the last 4 and finals, and I said to them, particularly the girls, I said, I want you to study these players and come back to me and tell me why you think they're the best, why you think they're in the quarters, the semis and finals. And some of them came back to me and said, you know what, because they're physically very strong. And then we had a French girl came out against us, and she was an average badminton player, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to her, but she had an unbelievably strong athletic pair of legs. and she could stay out there all day. So I think the secret for any national governing body across Europe or whatever, if they want to make strides, is get your players physically strong. Get them physically strong. Technique is great, it's wonderful, but it won't win you anything on its own. So, if national governing bodies, get your players physically strong. I mean, Alex Lanier won the gold in the men's singles, the men's doubles. I mean, the kid is just phenomenally strong, and that's where you need to be. So I think that's the clue for national governing bodies, is get your players on strength and conditioning courses. GA are doing it to under 12s.
Yeah.
So it's all about being physically strong. If you're not physically strong enough, you may stay at home. Yeah. And that's just the difference I've seen in the game.
It's interesting. It's brilliant to get this sort of insight, because you're away, you're observing, you're actually live there. You can actually see the shape of the players, the condition the players are in. It's sometimes the live stream is great, but it doesn't. You've got to be there to see it, and it's brilliant to have you on the Badminton Talk podcast with these insights, Michael.
Yeah, and I think you could interpret what Michael is saying, Mark, as well. Like, there's no excuse for not being fit. I think that's another. You could say there's an excuse for being not as technically good because you didn't get the technique when you're younger. All the technique. Yeah. Maybe you have very good footwork, but you don't have good, maybe, backhand or something like that, and you have to work on that. But not to be, super fit. You talked about Alex Lanier. Like, why can't our players be as fit as the fittest? There's no excuse. We have bleep tests. We have programs we do. It's a mindset thing. It's a priority as well. I remember. Sorry, Mike. I was going to say. I remember when Scott Evans came over a couple of years ago. I'm sorry for cutting across you there, Michael, but just because I forgot the point, I might forget it again here. And he was watching. I think there was Dylan and a few of them training the juniors, and I said, "What do you see?" And he said, I see passion, I see determination, I see, loving the sport. But when I compared them to the Danish, physically, these 13, 14-year-olds are about a year and a half behind their physicality. That was his comment. And it's interesting, Michael, you're saying the same thing, and I put you in that category because obviously, Scott Evans has been through, the A to Z of badminton at the fitness level.
Yeah, no, I suppose I'm not making a reference to Irish players at all. I'm just saying that if I look at any of the nations out there that would be those nations that would put their hand up and say, yeah, we'd really like to get to the next level, how do we do it? And the answer is pretty straightforward. Look at all the players who are at that next level and tell me, what do you see? And the answer is, you see players who are physically, I wouldn't use the term physically fit, of course they are, but very strong, physically very strong. I mean, the things that Nat was doing when he was winning the European under-17s, people probably completely missed the fact that he was physically so good, and so was Alex Lanier. So I think at that level, any national governing body, if you want to see what you need to do to get to the next level, look at the top players and look at how physically good they are. And I think it's about getting proper strength and conditioning programs in place, which again, I said earlier, the GAA are doing to under 12s.
Wow, so that's how
So why we put money into the meter, Mark, and get the second bit going, we're just going to butt ourselves in here. When we do get an opportunity to talk, we do like to talk, Mark.
I've noticed that, John.
I've noticed that too. Poor Michael couldn't get in there. Did you notice that?
I saw that.
I had to kind of tell him I'd forget things, but he does take a lot more of the airways afterwards, and that's brilliant. Get them strong. God, strong. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, I would. Although you need to get the experts at it. I think maybe some badminton coaches think they know strength and conditioning, but you probably need to get... There's a generation coming up have trained 3-4 years in nutrition, stretching, fitness levels, HIIT, high-intensity interval training. There's no excuse. Find a good fitness coach. Technique, I think, is very important, particularly if you're going to start lifting weights. And I wouldn't really recommend lifting weights at a young age, but certainly be. It depends on every person.
Well, how
16,
come
17, 18, you can start to lift weights.
Well, how come Alex Lanier is stronger than some of our players around his age?
Well, I would guess that he has had a strength and conditioning program for 2 or 3 years.
Funded, would you say?
Yeah, in France, absolutely.
Yeah.
Probably
It's back to money again, isn't it? Where we all started in the Badminton Talk with Sam 37 episodes ago, Mark. All about, you need money, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
You do need money. You need to invest, and you need to employ the specialists who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, well, Mark, just before we click the button, it looks here now we're on 98% for this meter. We'll be back in there, thanks to the Q shuttle here. We're able to go in a second. Was Michael O'Mara a strong player when he was younger? What do you think?
He was one of the strongest athletes.
Tough, like strong legs, as he talks about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why he was just a cut above everybody else at his time. It may have been natural, it might have been genetic, but I suspect Michael put a huge amount of work into running and building leg strength. It was phenomenal how high he could jump, and he was very athletic. He was very light and quick on his feet and very explosive. And so, I watched and learnt. I never got to his level in terms of strength and conditioning, but I could see this is the way badminton was going, and in many ways Michael was way ahead of his time in Irish badminton because he had that natural strength and conditioning. And
was it, Michael, that there was plenty of fields around Nina and Tipperary, so he was able to run around, or was it that he played another sport and it complemented his badminton?
Yeah, I would say the GAA had a lot
to do with it. The Gaelic had a big influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They're fit players when you watch them.
Strong.
Yeah, strong.
Yeah. And no nonsense.
Yeah, I think
particularly hurling, you have to shoulder people off.
Oh, absolutely.
You've got to have a bit of a warrior spirit, and that brings, and you've got pride in your club and in your parish. And
you can feel it in talking to Michael. He's got passion.
Yeah, and you wanted to do well for your parish. Yeah. And you wanted to beat the next parish next door to you. And so you trained hard, and everybody bought into that within the parish because you had to have the bragging rights over
absolutely.
the rivals.
Yeah.
And that's strong, healthy competition.
Healthy competition there. Brilliant, Mark. That's on the Badminton Talk podcast, brought to you by the Q Shuttle. Right, Mark, the good news is the meter's full again. We can go. I think we're going to go for a continuance. Are you ready?
Go for it, John.
Okay, Michael, come in.
Okay, we are here with Michael O'Mara on the Badminton Talk podcast, brought to you by, of course, the Q Shuttle. Michael O'Mara, who has achieved 102 senior international caps, including 4 world championships, and we must explore them more, Mark, shortly, including the Thomas Cups and the European Champions, the Helvetia Cup, and 7 national senior double titles with 4 different partners. We were just talking there about the physicality. Michael was making the point about, Nat. People underestimated how strong physically Nat was at a young age, like Alex Lanier. Would you concur with that? That at the end of the day, when you're at that age, that's such a huge difference.
Absolutely. Mike was there in Slovenia. He could see firsthand, live, how strong the players are to get there. But actually, it's a point that you made, John, that I thought was very important. Really, badminton comes from within. If you're going to be if you're an ambitious badminton player and you want to be a successful badminton player, you've got to have that drive from within you. And you said, well, why can't our young players be as physically strong and fit as Alex Lanier or Nat was when he was playing in the under-17? In fact, Nat would be an absolute perfect role model. He could drive. Look at what his program is and was, and what. There's no reason why somebody shouldn't be as strong as Nat.
Well, I think it's the mindset that the senior coach in the setup brings. I certainly know Davis from the time. I know Davis is finishing up as coach at the end of this month, very, very soon. And I certainly know from talking with the juvenile players, they really liked Davis. And he had this mindset, the Ray Stevens mindset, to be physically as strong as not just strong but fit as well, and he would train them, and like you have to buy into that. You have to accept that. I think bleep tests every year, Michael, should be mandatory. If you don't hit your metrics, and I'm throwing that out here because I agree with you. By the way, my own view is there should be no excuse. If you're not up to it, you shouldn't be in it.
But again, just to stress, I mean, I'm talking about. I'm not kind of talking about our players or anything like that. I'm simply saying, looking at badminton, I suppose from a helicopter view, looking down at what I've seen around Europe, the recipe isn't rocket science in terms of if you're a national governing body that wants to make strides and you want a piece of what you look what France have achieved over the last 20 years. If you want a piece of that, well, then the things you got to do, and one is you got to put proper strength and conditioning programs in place for your players to make sure that they get the best advice, the best programs that they can work through. Because it's not just a matter of getting in a gym. I suppose to some degree it is for players, but it's knowing what to do and what exercises, strength conditioning exercises are badminton specific. So for me, looking at badminton as a sport in general around Europe, that's where the countries who want to make gains will make it. Is they just need to have their players basically as strong as the others. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I know Mark has always made the point, Michael, that when you do have a player that's physically strong and fit, injuries tend to be less. So their longevity is much more in court. And I think, Mark, that's a huge point. Where players do get injuries, you would find a correlation to, well, what's your strength and conditioning program like? Yeah, very good, Michael.
I think as well, proper strength and conditioning and proper training programs, it will build character in players because they're used to going to dark places, having to train hard, dig deep, and that builds character.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important. Not only builds strength, but builds character.
Well, you want to see Mark Topping at the weekend, Michael. We built character with him at the Q Shuttle Badminton. He was on for 9 matches. I gave him a few extras. He was like...
He told me all about it.
You want to see him? I swear he had wings on the court here.
I played well yesterday.
He played very well. I'll tell you, there's a lot of... encouragement for all our over 35s, okay?
Very generous, John.
Okay, well, we like to be here on the Badminton Talk podcast, brought to you by the Q Shuttle, talking to Michael O'Mara. I'm losing my way a little bit, Mark.
I'll jump in.
Will you jump in? Yeah, rescue me. Yeah, rescue.
Let's talk about your Leinster badminton career. Obviously, probably you have to maybe spend a year living in Dublin before you could qualify playing for Leinster, and then under the residential rule, talk to us about your Leinster career. How long did you play and where did you play? I always remember the English intercounties with great fond memories. Some really tough trips away, really hard matches. Leinster was in the Premier B and sometimes in the Premier A of that event, and the English intercounty scene was always a battle-hardened player to try and get past.
Yeah, I don't know whether I was 6 months. I think I was 6 months living in Leinster at the time. But I remember getting selected. And I suppose one thing that I would say, if somebody said to me, did I produce my best badminton representing Leinster, I would say probably not. But did I produce my best badminton representing Ireland? Yes, I did. And I have no idea why that's the case. It wasn't that I didn't want to play my best every single time that I came out, but I always just seemed to be able to rise to the occasion when I put on the green shirt, and I would like to have had better performances with Leinster, but I would have played in a lot of inter-county matches with the likes of Jim Colfer, Niall Gannon, Brian McGowan, players like that, Mark Beard, Donny O'Halloran. We would have regularly gone over to the UK to play inter-county matches, and there were always good weekends with lots of good quality badminton. So I suppose I'm very quick to tell people, well, actually I played for Leinster too. I'm not just a typical Munster man who slags off Leinster. It's a case of, well, actually, I used to be a Leinster man at one stage of my career, and I'll always remember that, because many people in Dublin around Dublin were very good to me during my time travelling up and down, and also during my time living in Dublin. So very proud to say I represented Leinster.
Yeah, and he didn't do Judas. I told you, Mark. He didn't do Judas. There you go. You thought he did.
I never said that, John Noble.
Oh, just testing you out there. Of course you didn't, Mark. Yeah. But I tell you, Michael, there's probably not too many players that can say they've played for 2 provinces in Ireland. That is unusual, and as well played for Ireland. So that's another real string in your bow. If we could add that to Mark's introduction at the start. Mm-hmm. Okay, Mark. Have we exhausted that question on the Badminton Talk podcast? Is it time to move on to? I'm not sure if we've touched on this question, Michael. But the key word here is influential. Who were your most influential badminton coaches throughout your career? I know you've mentioned some names there earlier on. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I suppose from here, my parents would always have been influential, but not kind of as coaches, but I suppose as parents and guiding you and taking you to tournaments and all that. But I suppose the most influential would have been, I suppose, my uncle David Searson, but also Mary Seymour, whose son Billy plays for senior hurling for Tipperary at the moment. But Mary would have been a very influential. And then moving on, I suppose, maybe when I got to be about 12 years of age, the late and the great Kathleen Marks, who Badminton Ireland recently featured a big article on. Kathleen would have taken us to, I was having my brother to play in Munster, and she would have been very influential in that regard. I suppose when I moved to Dublin, Mary Bryan, before I moved to Dublin, Mary Bryan would have been very influential in my career. Coaches when I moved to Dublin, Aidan Murray would have been influential in terms of the view he took of badminton and how to train and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I suppose there's a couple of other coaches. Jens Pedersen from Denmark, who's a good friend of mine to this day, was very influential. I'd like to think for Bruce as well as myself. But it's funny, there was one coach who and I'm trying to remember his name. I can't remember his name, but it's funny I can't remember his name, but I'm going to call him out as being very influential. But he's an English coach who came over for a while to do a bit of coaching with us. And I remember we were at a Thomas Cup in Villach in Norway, Villach in Austria, and for various reasons which I won't get into, but my confidence was on the floor. And he called me to one side. And he said to me, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here because I got selected." He said, No. Why are you here playing badminton at this level?" And he said, "I'm going to tell you." He said, "You're here playing badminton at this level because you are an international standard men's doubles player." He said, "I don't care what anybody else is saying to you." He said, "I want you to hear what I'm saying to you loud and clear." He said, "You're the one who's on that court and you're the one who's doing the damage." And he said, "But you're not playing like it." Again, there's various reasons I won't go into for that.
Right.
But he lifted my confidence.
Insane.
And he actually got me to believe in myself. He got me to believe in myself. And that was at a I won't say a turning point in my career, but I was at a low point in my career for various reasons. Yeah. And he lifted me off the floor. And to be honest, it was important that he did that at the time. And I just, for some reason, I can still see him, but his name is just...
Yeah, but Michael, that's the sign of just a fantastic coach, because everybody goes through a lull. You know, let's face it. Everybody in their career, in their life, that's if you, otherwise you're a robot. So we all go through it, and you're just you have that person there that has your back and even just says the right things at the right time. Yeah. And because what I was going to ask, Michael, and don't get this the wrong way, were you how would I put this, a tough person to be coached, or were you one of those players that no, I was easy, or and I say tough, did you question things as a player? Were you not argumentative, but debate points and kind of because I know there's different types of players, some that just simply say nothing, some that can't stop talking, and sometimes it's not really what you want them to say, and others that actually do question things. So if coach 1 says something and coach 2 says something else, they'll say, hang on a sec, where do you fit into that?
No, I wouldn't have said that. I certainly wasn't somebody who would have questioned everything or challenged everything I was told. I think I was the kind of player, the kind of coaching I needed was encouragement. And that's something I try and do to any kids that play today, because, you know, if you don't believe you're good enough to be out there, then you simply shouldn't be out there, because if you don't believe it, then who else is going to believe it?
Yeah.
So no, I would have anything Aidan Murray ever, or Mary Bryan, or any coaches ever gave me or spoke to me about, I would have taken it on board, because Tom Reedy always said to me, "Do you know what? They just might be right." You know, and the only caveat I would ever have for taking advice from somebody is that they're coming from a good place and giving it to me.
Yeah.
If they're coming from a good place, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, but then, Michael, just to throw one more kind of progressive point on this part of the discussion, how important is the mindset then in badminton from someone who's been at the very top of the game in Ireland, you know, over 10, 15 years, on everything that you said? Because the mental side, the mindset, is probably the one part that is very hard to fix. You can get a lot of all the other aspects right, but how do you get that when you're doubting yourself? Even players who've won tournaments from time to time, they go out of form. You see this in the golf, you see it in tennis. They just lose confidence, and these are players that you'd look up to, you know, and say, you know, how do you lose the confidence? You know, how important, Michael, would you rate that as the most important, and the best players that win in the end, they conquer that side? Would that be a fair?
Yeah, well, I think I mean, in my case, I suppose the time that I spent not doubting myself, but not having the confidence that I should have had, it wasn't down to having bad results, which would often be the case where you would doubt yourself because you start losing and you don't get the results. But I think the mindset, when I was at my best, I was always able to get right up there mentally and emotionally to perform. And when I wasn't able to get up there, and it's not easy to do, you can't just say, right, I'm going to get switched on now and I'm going to perform. Sometimes you just can't reach the levels you need to. And I always found that, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my international career, is that people from a lot of top nations, they knew who, for example, most of my career was with Bruce, they knew who we were, they had played against us, and they knew we were a decent pair. And that meant a lot to me, was that at international level I was able to perform. And I like to think that would be the cornerstone of my career, is that at international level I was always able to perform, and I think Bruce and I had a pretty decent reputation around Europe, you know. Yeah.
You know, the only thing I can think about, if you take, you know, a tournament that's starting this weekend, is the Ryder Cup, which is always for anyone that likes to watch sport. Like, look at Ian Poulter. He performs under that highest of pressure that Michael's talking about. You're reminding me of this player that goes out and just is, he can bring his top game. I'm going to tell you a funny story, and I think I've told this to Mark. But it was 92 or something, 93. The European Championships were on in Denmark, and we were playing Iceland, and we were 4-0 up. And Mark will know Brody Christensen and Arnie Fahrenheit-Winston. They were a pretty solid pair for Iceland for years.
Strong.
And they had always had a look at myself and Bruce, and we'd have a look at them, and nothing would ever be said. But both parties were saying, yeah, I think we could have you. And Bruce and I felt we could beat them, and we wanted their scalp. And we finally got them in the Europeans. And with an English coach called Mark Medford. Now, we were 4-0 up in Iceland at the time. English coach had Mark Medford, who called us over. We discussed tactics. Bruce had picked up his stuff. He was going for the court. And as I went about following him, Mark grabbed my arm and he said, Mike, I want to talk to you for 1 second. He said, I was out in the restaurant there, and he said, I happened to overhear one of the Icelandic guys talking to the English team. And he said the English guy was asking him who were they about to play. And he said, we're playing 2 Irish guys. And he said, how do you think they'll do? And he said, well, to be honest, I don't think they're any great stakes. I think the left-hander is a decent player, but I think the right-hander is, he's definitely the weak link, and we'll target him. So at that stage I was gone for the court, steam coming out my ears and nose, and I was so up for that game, it was unbelievable. We set it to 5 in the third. I remember Bruce and I won it. And I remember coming up to the net at the end to shake Brody Christensen's hand, because I was told he was the guy that said it. So I shook his hand, and just as he was about to break the handshake, I clenched, I grabbed him, and I gave him the right keen stare. And he looked at me, and then I let him go. And we came straight off the court, and Mark Bertsford had seen what happened, and he said, Michael, I was only winding you up. That never happened. So I had to chase him down the power box. I'm so sorry.
It never happened. Oh, for goodness sake!
The power of the mind.
My God! I was just about to say they poked the bear. To use the expression. You just riled you, and all of a sudden, you got your top game coming out. That's incredible.
If you poke the bear, you see what you get.
Yeah.
Yes, if you poke the bear, you see what you get. And of course, if you tune into the Badminton Talk podcast sponsored by the Q Shuttle, you get Michael O'Meara, Mark Topping. How about that for a story? The Roy Keane stare. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yeah. I remember a few Roy Keane stares from across the net from Michael O'Meara. Yeah, he had this great ability to lift his game in the middle of a match. If you didn't poke him. You didn't poke the bear because he could lift his game and blow you off the court if he really was unhappy about something. When I hear the Roy Keane stare, there would be similarities actually.
Yeah, I think as we hear later on, he's a true red man.
Yes, he's always been a Manchester United
and a Munster.
And a Munster, yeah, but Manchester United, is Michael O'Meara's major love in life. He just loves Manchester United.
Maybe he'll go for the job at some stage when Ollie retires. What do you think? Be no messing there.
He might consider it.
I'd say he wouldn't mind the money that they'll pay him anyway if he was to get a shot at that, But sure, money's not everything, is it, Mark?
It helps, John.
It does help. A little bit help. Definitely Michael O'Meara, a politician. I'm sticking with that, Mark.
Are you? Yeah. I'm not so sure.
I think he could go into... He'd be great now as a politician.
I think he's just a natural, exuberant talker, networker, chatter, just loves life.
That's for sure.
And we're very fortunate to have him in the badminton world, I think.
Yeah, and we got to be careful because he does listen to our podcast, so, we need our P's and Q's.
Is he only one of few?
Whoa.
No, come on, everybody listens to us, John.
Oh, of course. Well, now, Mark, this Badminton Talk podcast, part 2 of Michael O'Meara, will go out to our listeners on the October the 2nd, which means that when we come to the third part, Mark, we'll know who's won the Nationals, because it'll be October 9th.
Yes.
The dust will have settled. We might have a little tiny commentary on that, so we can kind of see if your kind of inclinations comes to fruition.
Yes.
And we'll see what kind of commentary we get on our badminton on the Facebook page, I should say, on the is it fair or is it unfair to have had the Nationals? That's kind of really interesting. So we'll watch with that and we'll keep an eye on that. So Mark, as I look at the clock here, there's the music.
Is it time to go again?
God, listen, Michael O'Meara talked too much.
I think you might have talked a little bit too, John.
Yeah, I think Mark, and as well, you had a few words too. We all love the airways, don't we?
Well, I'm getting more and more confident with it.
Oh, you're very good, Mark. You're great value, if I can say. A career in the future on the radio airways if you wish to hang up your racket at some stage, but I don't see that ever.
No way, John. Come on.
No. Mark, anything planned for this weekend as we have to literally 30 seconds left?
Yeah, all the badminton clubs are coming back. Whitehall Road Junior Badminton Club
Woohoo!
is back. Yes. The 2nd of October. I can't wait to see all my juveniles, and it's like restarting. It's so long since we've been playing. It's almost 2 years. I can't wait to get back.
So it's almost, Mark, time to hit the restart button. That's it. So Listen, Mark, you enjoy back in the clubs and all of that. Others will enjoy out in the pubs. Won't be us. We'll be training hard. And Mark, we'll see you next week for part 3 of the Michael O'Mara podcast. Until then, the music's gone. See you, Mark.
Bye, John.